ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن المجيد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ذكر رحمة ربك عبده زكريا إذ نادى ربه نداء خفيا وقال في مقام آخر ادعوا ربكم تضرعا وخفيا إنه لا يحب المعتدين. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الله تعالى يقول أنا عند ظن عبدي بي وأنا معه إذا دعاني. Alhamdulillah, today we will be reading from the 16th juz. The 16th juz contains the end of Surah Kahf. It also contains the beginning, the whole Surah Maryam, and also the first, and also Surah Taha. So, yesterday we read Surah Bani Israel and Surah Kahf, most of Surah Kahf. And in this sequence of surahs is one of the best sequences that come in the Quran, along with the sequence of Surah Rahman, Surah Waqi'ah, and Surah Hadid. Because back to back, these surahs contain so much gems, so much pearls, such beautiful stories that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala illustrates for us in these two juz. And I cannot go into in depth, or I cannot explain to you every single surah, but today I want to focus on Surah Maryam. And also what I'm focusing on will also contain a connection to Surah Isra, Surah Kahf, and also Surah Taha. And what I want to speak about today is three individuals that are being spoken about in the surah. First is Zakaria alayhi salam, second is Maryam alayhi salam, and the last one is Ibrahim alayhi salam. Now the story of the surah starts off with the story of Zakaria. ذِكْرُ رَحْمَةِ رَبِّكَ عَبْدَهُ Zakaria. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala illustrates for us his dua. The first thing he tells us is what his dua was. And if you don't know the story, it is Zakaria alayhi salam is at the age of 84, some say 86, and he wants a son, he wants a child. And at this age he says, وَكَانَتِ امْرَأَتِي عَاقِرٌ, that my wife is barren, she cannot give any children. And I have been asking Allah, and Mufassirun say he's been making dua for years. And he's begging for a son, for someone to inherit this nubuwah, this legacy that he has built to his son. So he's making dua, and from this we can actually learn how we can make our duas. Because when we teach our kids, or when we tell someone to make dua, we don't really tell them how to make the dua. Sometimes it's just, Allah subhanahu give me this, Ameen. That's it. Or it's, can I have this, Ameen. That's it. But this passage explained to us how we're supposed to present ourselves in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Zakaria alayhi salam does it very beautifully. He starts off, he says, قال ربي إني وهن العظم مني واشتعل الرأس شيبا ولم أكن بدعائك ربي شقيا. The first thing he says in his dua is he declares his weakness. He declares how weak he is. And he declares how strong, how powerful, how independent Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. That's the first thing he does. Praising Allah and showing his weakness. Oh Allah, I'm old. I have white hairs. I cannot give a child. But Allah, you are the greatest. You can give from your treasures whatever you want. Your treasures are unlimited. He is showing first his weakness. Then after that, he asks Allah his reason. He explains to Allah his reason. So that his son, the reason why he's making dua is so that his son can inherit nubuwah. That's the second thing you're supposed to do. Weakness, show your weakness to Allah, then explain your reason. فَهَبْ لِي مِن لَدُنْكَ وَلِيًّا. Then you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what you want. Then you ask Allah for what you need. And the last thing he says, وَجَعَلْهُ رَبِّي رَضِيًّا. He makes a promise to Allah. Sometimes we don't make our promises to Allah. We ask for so much, but what is the reason why we're asking? So we can make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala happy with these blessings. Allah, give me a car. But if I'm using that same car for haram, then what's the point of asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Allah, give me money. But if that money is going towards haram, then what's the point of asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Allah, give me children. But if we're not taking care of those children and helping them improve in their deen, then what's the point of those children? So we ask Allah and then we make a promise. وَجَعَلْهُ رَبِّي رَضِيًّا. He promises Allah. He says, this son, you'll be pleased with him. I will make sure you'll be pleased with him. So he shows his weakness, then he gives his reason, then he asks for what he wants, and then he makes a promise to Allah. This is how our dua should be made, just like how Zakaria. And that is why his dua was accepted. And then, Ya Yahya khudh al-kitab biquwwa. He had a son named Yahya. You know, and the importance of our dua is very important for us to have this connection with Allah. For Allah to recognize our call above others. That this slave of mine is a close slave of mine. And I hear his dua, I'll accept it right away. There's a story of Khalid ibn Walid. When they were going to a battle, this is after the passing of the Prophet ﷺ, and it was a huge battle against the Romans. And you know, Abu Bakr bin Jarrah was the commander, but he assigned Khalid bin Walid to lead a militia to go and fight these Romans. And Khalid bin Walid tells him, he tells him, give me 30 people. That's all. He said, give me 30 people and I will make sure we'll get victory. So Abu Sufyan, he looks at him and he says, oh Khalid, you're facing 60,000 people. 60,000 compared to 30, you're not going to win this fight. I mean, that's not logical. So he looks at him and he says, Jabbarun fil jahiliyyah wa khawwarun fil Islam. He says, you were very confident when you were going against the Prophet ﷺ. Now that you're Muslim, you became a coward? I only need 30 people. And then Abu Bakr bin Jarrah convinces him, he says, just take 60. I'll give you 60. So he says, okay, I'll take 60. So then Abu Bakr bin Jarrah explains to Khalid bin Walid, he says, who do you want? Who do you want in your militia? Who do you want in your who you're fighting with, your soldiers? Do you want the best swordsman, the best horse rider, the best hand-to-hand combat, the strongest, the fastest, the best one who can archer? Who do you want? Because you're only taking 60, you have to take the best of the best. So Khalid bin Walid looks at him and he says, أريد رجالا لو أن أحدهم أقسم على الله لأبره. He says, I only want one type of man. Give me 60 of these type and I'll be fine. He says, I want men that if any one of them raise their hands to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will accept their dua before they say Ameen. I need these type of men. So he gave him 48 Ansar and 12 Muhajirun, consisting of Zubair bin Awam, Fadl bin Abbas, so many Sahabas, 60 of them that had this quality, mustajab al-dua. This conversation was happening at Dhuhr time. This conversation was happening at Fajr time, right? At Fajr time they're having this conversation and they're ready to go fight after Fajr. So they go, 60 people, Khalid bin Walid, 60,000 Romans. By Asr Salah of that same day, 60,000 Romans were defeated by 60 Muslims. This story comes in Tarikh al-Khulafa by Suyuti. Authentic. One of the greatest victories for the Muslims. Why? Because of the power of their dua. Because of how perfect they used to make their dua. Because of their connection with Allah. You know how you have someone on speed dial? Like someone very powerful or someone very famous? Like, yeah, if I call him, he'll pick up right away. We'll have that conversation. If I call this guy, if I call that guy, he'll pick up right away. Imagine you have Allah on speed dial. The moment you raise your hands, Allah says, I know that is my slave that I love. I'm accepting his prayer right away. This is the lesson we take from the story of Zakaria. Then the next story is the story of Maryam. This story of Maryam, I can't go into depth, but we all know the story of Maryam. She has a child without anyone touching her, without any man in her life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants her a child. And then she comes back, and the nation that she had started accusing her. لَقَدْ جِئْتِ شَيْئًا فَرِيًّا. You have come with something very... يَا أُخْتَ هَارُونَ مَا كَانَ أَبُوكِ امْرَأَ سَوْءٍ وَمَا كَانَتْ أُمُّكِ بَغِيًّا. Your father was not a immodest man. Your mother was not an immodest woman. What are you coming with? But what did Allah tell her? Do not say a word, let the child speak. قَالَ إِنِّي عَبْدُ اللَّهِ. That little child, Isa a.s. spoke. He said, I am the slave of Allah. آتَانِيَ الْكِتَابَ وَجَعَلَنِي نَبِيًّا. I am a prophet. وَجَعَلَنِي مُبَارَكًا. I have been made blessed. That child is defending the mother. In the history of this world, there were 3 children that spoke, 3 babies. It was Isa a.s. at that moment, the child who spoke to defend Yusuf a.s. When Yusuf was accused of that act, the child spoke and defended him, a small toddler. And the last child was when Fir'aun was throwing a woman into the pits of fire because she was in the religion of Musa. He was throwing her, and her child spoke to her and said, "Oh my mother, do not grieve. You are going to a way better place. You may be thrown into the fire. You're going to Jannah." These 3 children spoke. This is the story of Maryam. And the last story is the story of Ibrahim, where the conversation between him and his father. يا أبتي إني قد جاءني من العلم ما لم يأتك فاتبعني. Do not follow these idols. He's begging him, oh my dear beloved father, do not follow these idols, do not follow shaitan. لا تعبد الشيطان إن الشيطان كان للرحمن عصيا. يا أبتي إني أخاف أن يمسك عذاب. Oh my father, I fear that you're going to be punished. Don't do this. What did the father say? قال أراغب أنت عن آلهتي يا إبراهيم. I'm going to hit you, I'm going to hurt you. If you keep saying this, leave my house. What did Ibrahim a.s. say? قال سلام عليك سأستغفر لك ربي. Peace be upon you, O my father, I will still seek forgiveness for you. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed for him that you can't seek forgiveness for your father. He has died, he has passed away as a mushrik. This is the story of Ibrahim. Now, why does this sequence come? We have to understand how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts things together. The reason why it comes because remember in Surah Isra where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَقَضَىٰ رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ. He says, وَقَضَىٰ رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ. He speaks about doing shirk with Allah. And following that, what does he bring? The story of Kahf. Those youngsters who didn't do shirk. And then right after that, he says, وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Do good to your parents. He brings 3 stories that define doing good to your parents. Yahya a.s. was good to his parents. وَبَرًّا بِوَالِدَيْهِ. He was obedient. Isa a.s. was good to his mother. وَبَرًّا بِوَالِدَتِي. And Ibrahim a.s. was so beautiful with his father. قَالَ السَّلَامٌ عَلَيْكَ. He spoke about doing good to your parents and brought 3 stories of obedience. That shows the importance of showing obedience to our parents. And what does that have to do with the dua of Zakaria? The biggest way for our du'as to be accepted is if our mother and father are happy with us. If our mother and father are not happy with us, our du'as will never be accepted. That is the first condition of our du'as. And the second thing they have in common, these 3 stories, is seclusion. Seclusion is important. Zakaria a.s. went far. إِذْ نَادَى رَبَّهُ نِدَاءً خَفِيًّا. It was a loud cry of dua in a far place. He secluded himself. Next, Maryam a.s. مَكَانٍ شَرْقِيًّا مَكَانٍ قَصِيًّا. She went to the outskirts of the city. She left the town. She secluded herself. Ibrahim, وَأَعْتَزِلُكُمْ وَمَا تَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ وَوَهَبْنَا لَهُ إِسْحَاقَ يَعْقُوبَ. Ibrahim a.s. got Ishaq and Yaqub, the ni'mah of his 2 sons, when he secluded himself. Sometimes we can't seclude ourselves physically because we live in a world where, look around us, fitna everywhere. How are you going to seclude yourself? But you can seclude yourself mentally. Stay away from the gadgets. Stay away from social media. Stay away from bad environments, bad friends, bad suhbah. That's how we can seclude ourselves. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the ability to find that seclusion, to get our du'as accepted like the Sahabas did, to get our du'as accepted like Zakaria a.s. did. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us all tawfiq to act upon what was said. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.